Hello everyone. Hello John. Hi. Thank you for joining us for this quick chat about new gTLD next round. So we have John Matson joining us today, and we are in ICANN Prague event happening in the city of Prague in Czech Republic. And there is a policy forum, and there is a lot of discussion going around new gTLD right now. So I want to know what is your opinion about the new gTLD next round, and what is the current trend?
Hi, Venky.
Hi John.
Nice to see you and glad to be here today. Yeah, I mean, the next round's been coming for about 14 years, 13 years we've been waiting for this. And so it's really exciting. And the applicant guidebook just got published on May 30th. And I've gone through it recently and looked at the 233 questions.
All right.
And there's a lot to talk about.
All right. So I know the applicant guidebook is quite extensive. It's more than 400 pages. So it's no surprise you have gone through it already. So would you like to share some interesting facts from the applicant guidebook? What is different from the last round so that our audience is well educated about it?
Sure. So essentially what ICANN is trying to do is assess organization's ability to operate a fundamental zone in the internet. And so there's a serious responsibility that comes along with operating a top-level domain. And that has both financial responsibility, technical responsibility, security responsibilities. And the questions all assess that for a client so that ICANN can make those decisions.
Interesting. So if an applicant would like to start processing or start preparing themselves, what is the right time to get started?
Right now, the application window is scheduled to open in April of 2026. And so that's less than a year away. And there's a lot of information that's got to be prepared, both background on the company, as well as the string or applied for strings that you'll be considering, and how you need to develop your responses to those questions. As I said, there's 233 questions, about 115 of those, or half of them, are administrative, but the other half are content related to the actual string that you want to apply for, to any sort of contractual commitments that you'll make with ICANN, and then also the financial plans for that string.
All right. So I recently went through your blog about the questions in the application. So would you like to share some thoughts about it?
Sure. So when you look at those questions, we only had 50 in the last round. We have 233 in this round.
Okay.
And so you ask yourself, well, does that mean this is 4 times more complicated? And I would say no. All it means is that ICANN has got more granular in their questions. And so those administrative questions still cover the things necessary to do a background check on the company officers and directors and shareholders. But then the actual content questions, they first start out looking at the string and looking at what's your intention for how to use that string. And is it a community string, or is it a geographic string, or simply a generic? And based on that, you'll have different contractual requirements then that you'll need to define to ICANN as to how you're going to meet their required obligations. The technical backend registry service provider, those questions used to be in the question set, about 20 or so technical questions. Those are no longer there, and they're replaced by whoever your selection of an approved backend provider is. That gets included in your application. And then there's the financial. ICANN has broken up the definition of an applicant into 4 categories: either a government, a current registry operator, a standard operator, or a public company. And so depending on if you're one of those 4, there's a different set of both financials as well as projections that you'll need to provide.
Interesting. So you speak about a backend service provider. So they are called as RSP this time, Registry Service Provider. So what are your thoughts about picking up an RSP? Because any applicant who would like to apply for a new gTLD string, they need to choose one of the RSP beforehand. And what are the checklists they should go through, and which RSPs will suit better for the generics or .brands? Like, would you like to share your opinion on that?
Sure. There's probably going to be about 40 registry service providers, or RSPs, that are willing to outsource the back end of your application. And each one of those will have a different focus as to what they're trying to do. Some of them are more volume related and will have a lower cost. Some of them are more security related and will have a higher cost. Some of them are more country related and have a geographic preference. But it's good to go through and look and understand what is their history, what TLDs are they operating currently. You can find out how the TLDs that they're operating, how are they rated for spam, phishing, malware, and others, to give you a sense of what's the quality of the zones that they manage.
All right. So there is a lot of buzz around .brand TLDs now, and why you think it's really paramount for companies to take this opportunity and apply, which is coming after 15 years, and what value can it add for a .brand
Sure.
TLD?
Sure. Brands are interesting. Just a little anecdote. Back in 1997, I was pitching an aerospace company a website project for $1 million. And back then, the company responded, why would we ever need a website? No one's ever going to buy aircraft parts off a website. And you know, times have changed.
I think we have come a long way after that.
And so what we're looking at now is the opportunity that only came around, again, it was 12 years ago, and now it will be this coming year, to actually secure your own segment of the internet where you're able to control the DNS and be at the top of it. You can have your own security policies. And for some of you, it's a defensive choice because you may use the TLD later. For some of you, it might be something that you need right now, but it's absolutely an asset that is worthwhile to consider.
All right. So we know the application has opening up after 14 years from the last round. So if an applicant would like to skip this round and apply in the next round, when do you think probably might be a next round?
Well, when you deal with ICANN, projecting the future is difficult. But 2012 was the last round. Could it be a decade? There is some goal to try to cycle them through quicker, but that has not been my experience. So the opportunity for the window is coming up, and it should be seized.
Very interesting. So if they do not seize the opportunity this time, there is a pretty much uncertainty that it will take a longer time for them to consider applying again in the next round.
I don't think I can't say one way or another.
All right. So I asked this question to everybody, and I wanted to ask you as well. So what is that magic number you think? How many applications might turn out this time?
Good question. I guess I would say my estimate would be similar to last time, because if I break it down, I think there's going to be a few portfolio applicants that might have several hundred applications. Then I think you can look at some generics that are individual applications that people have a passion for. You're going to have geographies, cities and regions. Those have done very well in the last round. And then you're going to have brands. And last time brands were about 500 to 600. And that could be similar this time. When you think about all the corporations that have been started globally since 2012, these are all ones that never had the opportunity to apply for a TLD. And so I think there will be definitely, just as a defensive choice, to have that asset, but also some of them are not brick and mortar, they're all online, and their ability to possibly transition to a top-level domain may be different than what it was for prior brand applicants.
Interesting. So I asked you this question a few months ago in our webinar, that so from the day of application window open till the day somebody gets their TLD delegation approved, what is the timeline between you register your first domain name?
Well, it depends on your priority. So when all the applications are reviewed and once contention sets are defined, that's a few months of processing time. But then it goes into the priority, of which it's a lottery to determine when your application will get evaluated, and they'll be done in batches of 500. And that'll take several months for each one of those batches to go through. If you're in the early end of that, and if you are not in a contention set, you could get to your first sale within 15 to 18 months, maybe, from the application. And then it's just going to extend beyond that. If you look at the data, and actually you can see the data on our website, my website that talks about the last round, it took roughly 3.5 years for 1,000 top-level domains to be allocated into the zone.
That's interesting, John. So I wanted to ask you about one more question. So there are various types of applicants. One can be for a generic TLD, other for gTLD. So is the fees associated for application is the same for everybody? Like how much roughly it costs to apply for a new gTLD string?
Sure. So the basic cost for an application is $227,000. That's up a little bit from $185,000 in the last round. And then each application, depending on which type it is, may have some additional costs. A brand just has an additional $500 for their spec that they have to go through, which are contract clauses. However, community TLD has an $80,000 fee in addition to go through the community evaluation. So depending on what your string is, there may be additional costs. There may also be some costs associated with objections or other actions that are taken during the process. For each applicant, they need to have $50,000 on hand as a guarantee for each string, and that's a maximum though of $300,000. And so if you apply for 6 strings, that adds up to $300,000. But if you're 7 and over, you only need to have $300,000 in guaranteed funds.
This is in terms of bank statement?
Guaranteed funds at the time of application. And then at the last round, it was a letter of credit. And then when you get into the actual projections, ICANN requires that you do 3 years of domain sales projections and operating costs for your registry. Now, if you're only applying for one TLD, then that's just for one TLD. But if you're a company that's applying for 5, 10, or 100, you aggregate all of those together into one common projection, as well as one common set of revenue and costs. And so, whereas in the last time they were all submitted singularly, now they'll be submitted as a parent model.
All right. So when you talk about financial projections, what kind of financial projections I can expect from an applicant? Is there any minimum certain volumes they are looking at?
No, what they're looking at is based on the TLD that you're projecting or that you're applying for, what are the domain volumes you think you're going to achieve? What do you think the pricing is that you're going to do, both standard and premium? And also, what are the costs that you're going to expend over that time? Your registry service provider, your DNS abuse provider, your escrow provider, and then operating costs of marketing, sales, etc. And they want to make sure that you have enough funds, a positive cash flow throughout those 3 years. They'll also ask you to do a worst case scenario, which is to adjust down your registry volumes due to whatever market conditions are. Costs may be higher than you plan, and to demonstrate in the worst case scenario, you still have positive cash flow. And that's what those projections will assess.
Interesting. So I wanted to follow up and ask you one more question on .brand application. So a .brand application, I know now there is certain new requirements in the applicant guidebook where they have to get a TMCH file, and they also have a confirmed registered trademark and copyright before they go and apply for the new gTLD next round. So could you share more information about what brands need to know? And probably, I know today is the right time to get started for applying for the new gTLD, but what probably maybe the last step, because I know for sure if somebody needs to apply, they cannot start in the month of March. It will be very hard for them to get through anyway closer to the application window. But what is your opinion?
Sure. So for brands, the last round, what ICANN realized was there are global trademark databases, for countries all around the world. So they created a consolidated database called the Trademark Clearinghouse. And that is a consolidated list of trademarks that companies can put their trademark into. So this doesn't validate a trademark or give you a trademark. What TMCH does is it finds that you have a valid trademark in some other country, and that allows you to then register it for this process. And that has two elements of it. One, if you're applying for a top-level domain, your trademark must be registered in the TMCH. And two, if you're wanting to purchase a second-level domain on another TLD, you have the opportunity to use that TMCH record to allow you to have priority to purchase that domain name.
Interesting. So I also want to ask you one more question about variants. So this time I understood that each application can apply, each TLD application, you can apply for 3 variants of the same string. So what constitutes a variant, and what if there are contention sets on the variants of the TLD itself? How does this work?
Sure. So a variant is within different languages, there will be different characters that may have an accent over the vowel, that may have a different shape or form for the way the character is created. And so when you substitute characters in a string, that becomes a variant of the original. The simple one is people would think of an umlaut. And so when that umlaut is spelled in the string versus the traditional Latin characters, that creates a variant. And yes, in the ICANN application, they actually allow for 4 variants for the single price. So you could actually apply for your applied for string and 4 of its variants dependent on characters that may be important to your market. You do not need to apply for the variants if you don't need them. But if your TLD is popular in those countries where those languages are important, you may want to consider a variant to be added. Now, to your point about contention, that is whether or not the applied for string or the variant are similar to other strings. And that's a process, string similarity, that ICANN has a specialized evaluation to identify those. And then you'll either be put into a contention set, which is where the same string is applied for by multiple applicants, and then you'll go through the contention set resolution process, which essentially is an auction. And ICANN runs that auction, which is an ascending clock auction, whereby all of the applicants who have that same string go into the auction, and then the winner pays the second highest price, and that fee gets paid to ICANN.
Interesting. We have